Doing 1, 2, 2, 27 to the end. Redo. Let's go. The update leaderboard function. Well, last time in 1, 2, 2 part 1, we ended up with something that looked like this. You know what? You know what we did. Go back to the lesson. I got to enter my name, and then we play a game. The game's not going to work because there's no leaderboard in right now. So if I made a leaderboard and I pasted that in and I go stop and run again, you'll see what it does. Enter my name, and then we click the dot. And it adds up my score. I put my timer down to 5 seconds. You maybe have yours at 30, and then it posts some leaderboard scores. It updates the leaderboard. Now in this one, if I put my score in, it should have updated it with, it would just post the leaderboard. Now, let's do update leaderboard function. The function is responsible for adding the current player and score to the leaderboard list, as well as the next text file. But before you work on this function, a few review things. So a few reviews. If I say nums equal this set nums to a list of 5 numbers, and they're all 5, so 5 elements in a list. If I x equals nums3, that's going to get the whatever value is in the 3 address. And remember, it starts with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, it's going to get the 7 right here. So set x equal to 7. If you nums3 equals 7, okay, this sets the one in the index 3 spot to 7, so the 4th one. But it's already 7 in this, so that's kind of weird, but it sets it to 7. Yay, writes over it. Append will add an 11 to the end of the list, so you'll have a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. If you do append, it'll do it at the very end. A pop will pop the very rightmost element from a list. So if we had this list, it would pop. You did pop nums.pop, it would pop off the 9. And then if we did nums remove 7, so what's that's going to do is it's going to remove the first element that is a 7. So it'll start on the left side for you guys, and it'll keep going to the right until it sees 7. So in the case of maybe this one right here, it would start here and go, nope, not a 7, not a 7, not a 7. Boom, 7, pop it off. You'd be left with 1, 3, 5, 9 for your nums list. All right. So if there were multiple 7s, it would just pop off the leftmost one, because that could be a case. It's not going to pop off every 7 in the list. All right. So length of a list, a new function we're learning how to use length right here, and I have them all in these commands if you ever check them out. This is updated. In a little bit my definition of it. So len returns the length of a list. So for example, if I'm going to reset all these again because it's probably last time I played with this. If you ran this code right here, the length list is 5. So it has animals list as all of these animals. So dog, cat, mouse, bird, monkey. And it prints the length of the list is len. And then you do parentheses, and I put animals list in there. All right. So that's 5. If I take out the cat and I ran this, it's going to say the list is 4. How many elements are in the list? And, if there was just one element in the list, it's going to say 1. And if there were no elements in the list, so it's a blank, empty list, and I ran that, it would actually say 0. Okay? So how many elements are in the list? And len returns an integer. There you go. You can also do this for text. So if I did, what's really cool here, if I did the length of a string, right? So len also works for strings, just like the indexes did. So I said length, how are you right here? It's going to say 12 because there's 12 characters. 3, and then, okay, so that was way too many at the start. What if I did hello? Oops. What if I did like just one word? Hello. That's 5 characters. That's going to be 5, right? If I did an exclamation there, now it's 6 because punctuation also counts. If I did maybe like a space at the end, it's going to be 7. So spaces also count. I'm kind of curious. What if I hit tab? Okay, it's 8. So tabs count too. Cool. I was curious. If you have a blank string, I'm going to say 0. So it works. Len works for lists. It works for strings. I bet it would work for tuples too. I think we did that earlier. Oh, so we have this little animation. So length of a string, what's very useful for this is we can use it to loop through a list. And And this is kind of a common use for this. This is what I'm familiar with mostly, especially if you have like a list. I know we've used like for loops to loop for a list, but we can also loop through it with using the length. We'll tell you how many times you have to loop. So for example, like this. I think in the next lesson we learn more stuff with using the range function, but getting ahead of myself. So, hey, we have this list right here. You go index equals 0. We can use a while loop. While the index is less than the length, it's going to print out that index and then add 1 to the index to go to the next one. So we'll keep moving on with that and see what's going. So this is a nice way to iterate through a whole list. I know sometimes we've said like for like I in list, and that was a way to iterate through everything. But just think about this as an alternate way to do that. So, and I think there's multiple ways in Python to actually traverse or iterate through a list. And, length is a common way to use. What's the value of index when the loop stops? Notice when the loop stops, it's 5. And when you do a loop like this, and how does that compare to the length of the list? Well, the length of the list is 5. So that number at the end is going to be how big that loop is, as long as you run the code that way. Let's try this one right here. So how do I insert into a list? I can also do that. So let's say I have animal list, dog, cat, mouse, bird, monkey. If I do animal list dot insert for lion, watch what happens. My list is now dog, cat, mouse, bird, lion, monkey. So the way insert works, this is a nice little animation again, is the first number in insert represents the index value, and I want to insert before that, insert before the 4, and then this is what I'll insert. That was kind of a nice little animation. It moves it over. You can try it out yourself. A few other neat things with insert I was playing around with. Okay, what if if I did insert 1, right? It should do it right before cat, and there it does, dog, lion, cat. What if I did insert 0? This is index 0, so it puts it at the very beginning. What if you did insert 5? So 5 would be outside of this list. Oh, it'll do it at the very end. What if you did like 10, like way outside the list, right? Is it going to give me an error? It does not. It just puts it at the very end. Neat to know. So no matter how big I get, it's just going to put it at the very end. What if I did -1? -1 is going to put it right before monkey. If you remember, this is a -1 insert. This is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can also go backwards, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So it'll work the same way. Now, what if I did like -10, like really, really too far negative? What'll it do? It'll actually put it far to the left. So if you go outside of the index range, that would give errors in like trying to reference a certain index value. If you're trying to do that in a list, it would give you errors. But in the case of insert, it just puts it at whatever extreme of the list. Kind of neat. Kind of weird behavior. I don't know if I like that. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can try that out. You can insert multiple things. Moving on. Popping from a list. So we've learned how to pop, right? If you pop and it has no numbers in there, it just pops the rightmost item. But here's another behavior of pop. What if I put a 1 in as a argument in there? Dog, cat, mouse, bird, monkey. Watch, cat's gone. Cat is at index number 1. So if you put a 1 right there, this is a way to remove. We can use the remove function we learned above, or we kind of reviewed that above, but remove only removes it by whatever value is in that index, right? I'm searching for a certain value. But this lets me remove by the index itself, so whatever address. So maybe if I want to remove address 2, which is the mouse, I'm going to remove the mouse. Or I could say remove 0, remove the cat. Dog. What if I went outside of that? What if I said 5? What would it do? Error message, index out of range. So it's still, what if I do -1? I'm curious if it handles the negatives. Yep, it handles the negatives fine. But, so this is kind of crazy. It's kind of trippy, right? So this doesn't work with the index out of range. But when we try to insert, it does. I don't know. I don't know how much I like that. But that's how life works. Sometimes they don't behave quite the same way. Oh, well, they have a little animation for this. So sometimes it doesn't behave the same way. Well, it's just how they're created. Sometimes that might be useful for index so that you know your If you do an extreme value, you're just going to add it to the list. It's always going to work. But you just have to be careful when you use pop if you go outside the list, because it won't work. Don't like that too much. All right, so what's this next one? Try a slightly different code. I've played around with it. You can play around with that yourself if you want to. And what's neat is, okay, when you pop, you can still save it as a variable to be able to print that out when you pop, just like we've done before. Okay, so let's update this leaderboard. It's time to complete the code for the update leaderboard function. The goal of the function is to insert the new name and score at the appropriate position on the leaderboard based on the score. So if it's in the top 5, it should be appropriate spot in the top 5. Leaderboard must be maintained in descending order, meaning the highest to lowest score. So this is kind of where I'm going to be inserting into the correct spot right here. So find the to-do 5 function, and I'm going to go in leaderboard. We did load leaderboard last time, so update leaderboard, to-do 5 function. Notice I have this while loop. I'm going to uncomment this. Now, when you do this, this while loop for me was in the wrong spot, so I actually have to back that up a little bit. So then all this is going to be in between, right? Complete the while loop header so it iterates through the leaderboard scores list. If you need hints, I'm just going to go through the hints right here. Okay, so we're going to be adding this part, right? You know, if you want to do this on your own, you can go ahead, but you can pause in between. But I'm just going to copy and paste. So so we set leader index to 0, kind of like that example above, while the index is less than the length of the leader scores. We keep looping. All right, cool. For to do 6, right below that, if you remember, it's right here, to do 6, check its position to insert the score. Complete the if header in the position new score. So we want to use the if header, and we're kind of like comparing the scores, right? So if our player score, like what the players just got for a score, is greater than or equal to the leader scores index, wherever I'm at in the leader scores, then go to the next one. So as long as it's bigger than that, bigger or equal to that, we're gonna go to the next one. So it's gonna go up. So, for example, it'll start looking at like step 5. Let's say my score was 8. It'd say, oh, bigger than 8, so jump up. Bigger than 6, bigger than 7, bigger than 7. It's gonna stop when it sees this one. It goes, uh-oh, I'm done. So notice what happens with the code is it says it'll keep doing the else thing, else thing, else. If that player's score is actually greater than, oh, my bad. I think it actually starts with the highest score first, then keeps going up. It's the same idea. All right. If I had a score of, let's see, 10, my score was 8. Is that score greater than that? No. So then it's going to iterate. It's going to do the else, add 1 to the index, and then is it 8 bigger than 7? Yeah. Then it'll pop out right there. So when it becomes true, we're going to, when it has this break command. Now, break is a new thing here. What break does, and I have it in the list, is it breaks out of whatever for loop or while loop you're in, like the innermost one. Whenever I run break, like it'll say, oh, just dip out of this while loop, go to line 55. Now, usually we break only at the start of the while loop, right? Whenever this is false, we break out. But break lets us leave the loop earlier for whatever reason we want. And the reason we're going to do this is we're kind of keeping that index value to be used later to know where to insert into our list. You'll see. So breaks one of those ways to get out of for loops or while loops early. So if you want to have checks in the middle, probably generally a good practice is to not use breaks so much, because this should be the only place you break out. Because if you got a lot of stuff going on, you got random breaks in there, and it's a bigger code, it's going to be harder to follow. So I've been told before, try to avoid those, because it's just harder to debug code later on if you had like a really big while loop and random breaks in there. The break statements explain the while loop works and why it's important to use the break statement. So we're gonna do this because it stops that index. It stops this leader index, because leader index is basically trying to keep track of where to insert it. So we're breaking out when we found that spot. Now you determine the index which the new score should be inserted. Add the code to do 7. Insert the player name. So we're going to use this. So we're going to insert the player into leader scores and leader names. And to do 7. There you go. So add it to the scores and names in that spot. Remember, those are corresponding lists with the names and the scores. And at some point last time, like, you parse through all the names and you like put them in the names list and you put the numbers in the numbers list. That was what we did the last lesson. All right. Test your code so far. Let's try this out. Please enter your name. I don't know. That's my name. Of course it's not going to work. Oh. It just did the replit thing of not paying attention. Wake up. Why doesn't it actually run? I just need that time to be longer. Fine. Okay. Hold on. Okay, Replit's not running this right now, so I'm just going to keep moving on. I'm going to assume the code works because I want to record this video. Okay, recall the leaderboard is supposed to only contain the top 5 scores. What if the leaderboard file already contained 5 scores? Now, if you actually did this and you were supposed to be in the end of the list, I'd love to show this though, so I'm going to try to. All right, it's not working. But what's going to end up happening is it's going to show 6 scores. So we're going to add code into do 8 that will check to see if the list contains more than 5 elements. So what you're going to do, you have 2 options. So basically, if that index range, if it was supposed to be in the 6th place, if the length of leader names is 6, so that means you added something to this, we're going to pop off element 5, or you can do it either way. So I'm going to do it with the actually referencing the numbers, because I feel that is better. So I'm going to go to leaderboard function. This is in this one, right? And we are in step 8. We are actually going to paste it right there. Make sure my tabs were off. So the way you can do this, you can highlight everything and hit tab button. You also go shift tab to go backwards if you didn't know that. Shift tab for backwards and tab to go forward. Tab, 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 shift, tab, tab, tab. Okay, let's put those in to do 8. So that should pop off, so you should only have 5 items in the list. Undo the block string into do 9 and review the code in the while loop. What's the write function doing? All right, so to do 9, I got to block this off. To do 9, so we got this thing going on. Wait. Oh, this is part 1. All right, to do 9. So we're going to undo this. All of that. We're actually going to move that while loop back. All right, so a few things happening. We're going to open a file now with a W. What's a W? Last time we did R in last lesson. This one does W. This means we're going to write to the code. Last one was an R for read. W means write. So when I open a file to write, the thing that's going to happen is it's going to erase everything currently in that file. And then it'll start writing stuff into that file when I do the write command. All right, so careful when you open and you put a W there. I think, so, okay. Oh, so that's cool. If you hover over this, it'll say this in here, at least in Replit. This will tell you R means to open. I can't move my cursor, you won't see it. But if you look in the middle, it defaults to R, which means open or read. Other common values are W, which is writing. X for creating and writing a new file, and A for appending. So I guess, A would be neat, like if you want to just add to the list without erasing everything. Write will erase everything. It just resets the file. So setting this leader index to 0 again, or leader index. So it's resetting that right here. And it says, okay, so that's what we're doing so far. Undo the block in 2.9, review the code. Okay, so this is while, and there's nothing in here yet. While something, it's going to write that leader to the index, and then so basically, we saved, last time, if you remember, we saved everything from that file, and we saved it in these 2 lists, right? The leader names and leader scores. Now we are going to put those back into that file. So we saved it all to the list that we kind of like parsed out with the commas. And now we're putting it back in with the commas and with that new line after each one of those. So we're going to be doing that. So complete the while loop. Now, the while loop needs something in there. We have two options. So leader index. So how do you make it so the while loop goes through everything? You can take one of those lists and say, wow, that leader index is less than the length of the leader names, or you could have done leader scores. Both are options because they both have the same length. All right. And that'll be it for that one. Now test the code for errors. Oh, cool. It's failing to connect. I hope my internet didn't go down. Changes may not be saved. Oh, thank you, Replit. Oh, man. Come on, Replit. I pay no money to you. I expect you to work all the time because I'm paying nothing to you. They should oh, it's time to hit the upgrade button. Uh-oh. Maybe it's because I have this starter plan. Oh, can I? Oh, $7 a month. Ooh, team pricing. Let's just pay for this, right? No. You can sponsor my YouTube videos. How about you give me a free account? Wait. Teams for education. Okay. Oh. More things I have to pay for. Education. One class. Okay. What am I looking at? This is not a sponsored video. Let's pause. All right, Replit's still being weird. You don't get to see the board right here, but it should work for you, all right? Just imagine the scores updating correctly and bumping things out, all right? So it should all work. So whatever score you get, it should bump from this list. It's pulling from this list right here. If you want to play with values, I would just try different numbers, And what's a neat thing, if you had a score of 7, what this is going to do, you might want to try what happens on a tie. It'll actually bump you to the top of the 7s list, okay? So if I scored 7, it put me in second place right here. A new person between first and second right here. That's what it should do. It should display things on the screen. I'm going to move on. So test the code for errors. It should work. If it doesn't, hey, you might have copied things wrong or didn't tab things right. Look around. Draw leaderboard function. Last piece of leaderboard. So this actually works. All right. The thing that already works, it already draws the leaderboard on the screen. But the only thing that we add is this bronze, silver, or gold medal. And if you look at the code, I was like, what? Nothing's going on here. Bronze, silver, or gold score. So 15, 20, or 25. So if you get one of those scores, it'll give you a medal. And if you see this to do 10, that's basically what we're going to change right here. So now, one thing they teach you, because, hey, there's not enough in this lesson already. Let's put more in there because you aren't already confused with too much stuff. So we learned how logical Booleans. Remember the true false things with less than, greater than, double equal to, not equal to, right? We learned those relational operators. Now we're going to learn logical operators. I didn't know they had different names. Doesn't matter. What are the logical ones? And, or, and not is the ones we're going to worry about now. Now, if you've taken digital electronics, students at my school might have, hey, you learned this way better. So, and, or, and not, let's see, it works like this. You want to know how and, or, and not work? I found this table. This works out pretty good. Look at this picture. So, and you have to ignore the digital electronics versions of this. If you want to do circuits, you'll learn that stuff later. But and basically you have two things on each side, right? A and B, right? And okay, 1 represents true, 0 represents false for this. So the idea with and on both sides, if both things are true, everything's true. If one of those is false or both of them are false, it's all false. So false and false, false. True and true, true. But if only one is true, like A is only true or B is only true, it doesn't matter. It's false. This is true and this is true. So and, okay? Or says this is true or this is true. So if they're both false, we go false. But if at least one of them is true, it's true. And if they're both true, we return a true. If this is true or this is true versus is this true and this is true. So hopefully that makes sense with words. XOR, we're not doing that, but you can look at the logic if you're curious. Not is the other one. Not basically just reverses it. So if it's false and I not it, it makes it true. And true makes it false. It's just doing the opposite, flips it. So that's what they're trying to explain here. Blah, blah, blah. And the way you do this, look at the formats. If grade is greater than 70 and grade is less than 80, you can print this grade. You might have, when we did the grade one, like last unit, you might kind of remember that format, but I don't think we used ands in there. But that's one way you can say, hey, if it's, especially, this is really useful if you want to check if something is between, like a number is between two numbers. This is the way you can do this. We can say if grade is greater than 70 or less than 80. One thing, okay, I'm going to try something else later. So you can test out this code, review what this does. So if numbers were x, 8, x was 4, y is 8, and z is 12. So if we said is 4 less than, I hate that it looks like that, and is 12 less than 8. So if I did this one, is 4 greater than 8 and 12 greater than 8? No, because this one's false, but this one would be true. So we're going to say false, right? But if I did 4 and this was 8, I don't like what they have letters right there. Why don't they just put numbers in? Is 4 less than 8 or 12 greater than 8? 4 greater than 8 or 12 greater than 8? Well, this one's true. This one's false. But since I have an or, this will return a true. This idea with the knots right here. So if is 4 greater than 8, that is false. So, but if you not that, then I return true. That sounds confusing to say. Maybe you got to kind of look at that and think about it. Another thing with and, I think you can do double ampersand, and I think that also represents and. No, it doesn't. I think it does in other languages. But that's annoying. Can you do that? Maybe one works? I don't know if that's true. And I thought or in other languages was like double these signs. Or is it one of those signs? Okay, that doesn't don't ever do this. Because I don't think that's correct behavior. I think I'm just making up stuff. I think that works, I remember in like C or something. Or C++. All right, so blah, blah, blah. The idea is we're going to paste some code in there. And they don't tell you, oh, what do I want to do to make this work? The idea is that you can paste this code. So see where this if is? I'm going to erase it all. Boom. So, oops, let's tab, oops. I don't like that. Okay. So the neat thing is you don't need these insides to all be tabbed at the same level. You know how these aren't lined up, but this one's not? It's okay because this one's inside of this. It just doesn't matter, but I'm going to make it like that. So we are using ands here to check in between, blah, blah, blah. I would actually do this differently. I did it differently in my class. Like, I don't think you can write this without using ands if you just check for gold first. So in my classes, since we're like almost at the end right here. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's what I would do. Okay, let's see what it does. Change the timer variable back to 30. Play the game multiple times to ensure, okay, test scenario where you do not achieve any of the levels. Test this out. If your scores, you're like, oh, I can't get a high enough score to test this out, just go back to the leaderboards file. Very top. Like, I was like, I don't like testing these out. Let's just make these values smaller just to test them. I mean, you can just make those smaller just to test it out. If you want to make sure they all work correctly. We should paste that in. You know, notice it's using elifs and ifs. There's no else in there because there's like if I don't make bronze, or at least I don't want any of these to print out. What I was going to say is to do this differently. Watch this. Oops, I shouldn't have done it. So this is how I would actually do this. I would check gold first. And then I would check silver. So I don't like having to put the ands in there. So you don't need to. If you know you're not gold, you don't even need to check this part. You can actually delete this and just do it like this. Else if player score is greater than this score. So if you do this kind of stuff, you can avoid using the ands if you want to. So one way to think about this maybe in the future is just the ands can kind of help you, but sometimes it just looks so long if you have too many things in there. And if I just did my setup like this, because you're checking your gold first, you don't even need to use those ands. So you can avoid that. And so my code right there would work just the same way. But I don't use the ands because it's like, because you're checking the gold first, the and part is implied. Because obviously it's going to be, like when you're checking here, obviously it's going to be less than gold score because you already confirmed that up here. All right. Let's see, what are they doing at the end? So test it out, blah, 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 fix errors. Take a closer look at the if statement under to-do line and manage leaderboard. Didn't I just do that? Oh, there's another part. Manage leaderboard that you added at the beginning of the activity. I skipped this last time. I don't recall that. Manage leaderboard? Was that in here? Recall that manage leaderboard. Okay, here's this. Oh, okay. Hey, it just keeps going. Take a closer look at the if statement under the to-do. What is the if statement doing? All right. So if, it has an or in there. Ooh. Okay, what is manage the leaderboard for the top 5? So, okay, globals. Load all leaderboard records. Okay, whatever. Oh, this is where it's calling those functions. Or I say calling, so running those functions. Calling. So the length of that scores list is less than 5, or the scores or score is greater than leaderboard scores list of the fourth one. Okay. So here's what's going on. It's only going to run this leaderboard and update the leaderboard and update the leaderboard if the length of the leaderboard scores list is less than 5, or that score is going to be a member of that list. So what it does is it never runs. So this will avoid running update leaderboard if it knows your score is not going to change the leaderboard settings. So now, because what if the leaderboard doesn't have 5 people? Well, then you're going to be at the bottom, even if you get a score of 0. So that's what this part says. All right. So if it should be updating the leaderboard, it's going to run update and draw. Else, it's just going to draw. So, okay. I feel like that's not even necessary. I mean, you avoid running that part of the function, but I bet the code would be fine without that. The player makes a leaderboard, then the code updates the board before drawing the screen. Otherwise, the code does not update. What do you think the Boolean argument below is used for? Draw leaderboard code. Okay, what do I think? Oh, well, you can just check. Who cares? Do I care? You know what? I'm going to leave that up to you. We're done here, folks. Thank you.